Recently, I asked you, why write a text? And yes, this is about enthymemes, but I want to go back to that question because enthymemes are part of the answer. Now, the question, why write a text? What I'm asking there is what are we hoping to accomplish in writing and in reading? There's so many different reasons, but one of the big ones can be, as I've talked about, trying to make a point. So consider To Kill a Mockingbird, which hopefully you have all read or were supposed to read or pretended to read or something. But in other words, in any case, you have hopefully been exposed to some degree To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Now, here's a book that is a fully developed story with compelling characters, but it's also a book that undeniably has a point to make. And Harper Lee was acutely aware of that point when she wrote it. And so when we get to the end of the book, maybe as part of a discussion, you are asked the question, what is Harper Lee trying to say with this book? And you say her point. And there could be several different things. Racism is bad. Don't judge people until you've lived through their experiences. Compassion is the truest strength. All those are true and valid. But if that's what Harper Lee was trying to say, why not just say it? Put it on a bumper sticker. Put it on a shirt. What is it we're hoping to gain? Now, we're going to come back to that in a second. Enthymemes then, because this is going to help me get to the answer to that question. All an enthymeme is, this is the formal definition if you want to get into it, an informal syllogism with an unstated general truth that must be true for the premise to lead to the conclusion. Meaning, it's a syllogism. Informal just means we don't say it as all people are this, right? We don't say all people require oxygen to live. You are a person. It's something. It is how we tend to communicate a point. And as I mentioned in the written version of this, we can have logical reasoning that leads us to a conclusion that is completely wrong if the unstated general truth is not true. So just some examples of the kind of things, of course he's dumb, he's human, right? Oh, that was a dumb thing to do. Well, of course, he's human. Unstated truth. You don't respond to that with, well, all humans make mistakes. He is a human, therefore, you just say, oh yeah. Okay, snowing outside. Put on a coat, as I showed in the written examples. Now, where this can be useful is in dissecting other people's arguments and trying to figure out what's the basis of this. One of the common misconceptions, I believe, is that we often feel like people are just being irrational and unreasonable. People are almost always reacting reasonably. The question is, to what are they reacting? In other words, what is the belief that they have had instilled in them that is causing the reaction that it's causing? Now, going back to that fundamental truth part, so if we did something like this, we cannot trust this man, he has perjured himself in the past. Again, the part we are not saying is that people who perjured cannot be trusted. I'm saying it as if we've already proven that point. That's the first point where it can be dangerous in a way with enthymemes, because maybe you've never thought about that, but if I say that, I'm just assuming that you agree with me. And now based on that, you're going to agree on my logical reasoning. To take it to an even more extreme, right? We can't trust this man. He has shifty little eyes. I'm saying people with a certain type of eye cannot be trusted. All right, so let's go back to then, how does this connect to writing? If you're writing to make a point, the reason it is especially powerful is because you don't tell somebody what to do. You let them come to that conclusion themselves. Because what a novel or a story will often have is they will give us essentially a 350-page enthymeme. They give us a specific example, the characters, the plot, the setting, and an assertion about it based on the story and who we're supposed to root for and why. And in this case, and this is not the only answer, the specific example is Tom Robinson is a human being. That is undeniable within the context of the narrative. What about it? He deserves to be treated fairly, with dignity and respect. When we read this story, rather than Harper Lee saying it, we organically, through our own interpretation of the story, come to the conclusion that she actually wants us to reach. Harper Lee doesn't want us to come to the conclusion that Tom Robinson, a person who isn't real, deserves to be treated fairly with dignity and respect. She wants us to come to the conclusion that all human beings deserve to be treated this way. The way to do that is to tell it through the specific example, and we decide that for ourselves. This is why we tell things in fairy tale and fable. It's a story that allows us to develop those conclusions ourselves. So that's it. That's all an enthymeme is. Again, much like syllogisms, they're going to start very simply. They get very complex, but they are an extremely effective tool for dissecting difficult works or works in which they do not even state their actual point, but want you to discover that through interpretation.